The silence in my house was deafening. Not the peaceful kind that comes with age, but the hollow, echoing silence of being forgotten. My name is Dorothy, and at 73 years old, I had become invisible to the very family I had spent my entire life nurturing and loving. Asterisk, it started slowly, like most heartbreaks do. First, it was missed phone calls that went unreturned. Then the grandchildren stopped visiting. Family gatherings became smaller and smaller until they stopped including me altogether. My 3 children, Margaret, Robert, and Helen, had moved on with their busy lives, leaving me behind like an old photograph tucked away in a drawer. Asterisk, the breaking point came on my 73rd birthday. I had prepared for weeks, cleaning my small apartment until it sparkled, baking my famous apple pie, and setting the table for 6. I had called each of my children, reminding them gently about the date, listening to their promises to try to make it and see what we can do. Asterisk, 6 o'clock came and went. 7? By 8 o'clock, the candles on my birthday cake had burned down 2 small stubs, and I was sitting alone in my best dress, staring at an empty table. The silence was broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock that had been in our family for 3 generations, a clock that now seemed to mock me with each passing second. Asterisk, that night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to fade away quietly. I wasn't going to let them forget the woman who had sacrificed everything for their happiness. Dorothy Mae Patterson was going to make them remember. Asterisk, the next morning, I called my lawyer, Thomas Whitmore, a kind man who had handled my late husband's estate. Thomas, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I need to make some changes to my will. Asterisk, of course, Mrs. Patterson. What kind of changes are you thinking about? Asterisk, I want to leave everything to charity. Every penny, every heirloom, every piece of family history. My children seem to have forgotten I exist, so perhaps they won't mind if I forget them too. Asterisk, there was a pause on the other end of the line. Thomas had known our family for decades. He understood the weight of what I was saying. Asterisk, double quotes, Dorothy, are you certain about this? Sometimes families go through difficult periods, but asterisk, Thomas spent 47 years married to their father, Harold. Right, raised 3 children, working 2 jobs when money was tight, helped with every homework assignment, attended every school play, and nursed them through every illness. I was there for Margaret's divorce, lending her money I couldn't afford to spare. I babysat Robert's twins every weekend for 3 years so he could build his business. I helped Helen through her struggles with depression, sitting by her bedside night after night. My voice grew stronger with each word. And where were they on my birthday? Where have they been for the past 2 years as I've grown older and more alone? If they've forgotten me while I'm alive, they certainly don't deserve to remember me when I'm gone. Asterisk, Thomas scheduled an appointment for the following week, but I wasn't done with my plan. I had been passive for too long, accepting their neglect as somehow normal or deserved. It was time for Dorothy Patterson to take action. Asterisk, I started small. Margaret worked as a real estate agent at the most prestigious firm in town. Every morning for a week, I sent her office a beautiful flower arrangement with a card that simply read, "Thinking of you, your forgotten mother." Her colleagues began asking questions. Margaret called me, flustered and embarrassed. Asterisk, Mother, what are you doing? Everyone at work is asking about these flowers. You're making me look bad. Asteriska, am I Margaret? And how do you think I look when your own daughter can't remember my birthday? Asterisk, the line went quiet. Then, I'm sorry, Mother. I meant to call. But, asterisk, but you didn't. And neither did your brother or sister. Actions speak louder than intentions, dear. Asterisk, for Robert, I took a different approach. He was proud of his successful construction business, always posting about his latest projects on social media. I hired a skywriter to fly over his biggest job site with a message. Robert Patterson, call your mother. Love, Dorothy. The entire construction crew saw it, his clients saw it. And the local newspaper even ran a small story about the mystery mother's message in the sky. Asterisk Robert was furious when he called. Ah! That was humiliating. My crew won't stop talking. About it, my clients are asking questions. Why would you do something like that? Asterisk because, Robert, humiliation is exactly what you've put me through. Do you know what it's like to sit alone on your birthday, waiting for children who never come? Do you know what it's like to call your grandchildren and have them act like they barely remember who you are? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. If you're enjoying Dorothy's story and want to hear more inspiring tales about seniors who refuse to be forgotten, please subscribe to our channel for more uplifting content. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk for Helen, the youngest and perhaps the most sensitive. I chose a gentler but equally effective approach. I began volunteering at the local nursing home, reading to residents who had no family visitors. I made sure to mention to everyone there that I was Helen Matthews' mother and how proud I was of her career as a teacher. Soon, Helen's colleagues were stopping her in the hallway, asking about her wonderful mother, who was doing such meaningful work with elderly residents. Asterisk when Helen finally called. She was crying. Mom, I heard about what you're doing at Sunset Manor. Mrs. Rodriguez from the front office said you mentioned me. I didn't know you were volunteering there. Asterisk, there's a lot you don't know about me anymore, Helen. I've had to find new ways to fill the emptiness that used to be filled by my family. Asterisk, I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. I know I've been terrible about staying in touch between work and the kids and everything else. Asterisk Helen, dear, there's always an excuse. But love isn't about convenience. It's about making time for what matters. Most asterisk, but the real shock came when my grandchildren started receiving letters. It's not angry letters, but loving ones filled with stories about their grandparents, their family history, and memories they had never heard before. I wrote about their grandfather Harold's service in the war, about how we met at a USO dance, about the struggles and triumphs that had shaped our family. Asterisk, each letter ended with the same gentle message. I love you more than words can say. I hope someday you'll want to hear these stories in person. Not, at least you'll know where you came from. With all my love, Grandma Dorothy. The letters had an unexpected effect. My grandson Timothy, Margaret's boy, showed up at my door one evening with tears in his eyes. Asterisk Grandma. I never knew about Grandpa's medals. Mom never told us about how he saved those men in Korea. And I never knew you worked at the airplane factory during the war. Asterisk, there's so much more to tell, Timothy. So many stories that will die with me if no one wants to hear them. Asterisk, I want to hear them, Grandma. I want to know everything. Asterisk that evening, sitting with Timothy, sharing stories and looking through old photo albums, I felt alive again. I felt remembered, but I also felt the weight of what I was about to do. The appointment with Thomas was in 2 days, and I was still planning to leave everything to charity. Asterisk the next morning, my doorbell rang. Margaret, Robert, and Helen, all standing together on my doorstep, looking uncomfortable and ashamed. Asterisk, Mom. Margaret began, we need to talk. Asterisk, I invited them in, served them coffee in the same china cups I had used for family gatherings for decades. We sat in my living room, the same room where I had bandaged their scraped knees, helped with homework, and listened to their teenage heartbreaks. Asterisk, we've been talking, Robert said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet, about the flowers and the skywriter and everything else. We realize we've been terrible children. Asterisk, not terrible, I corrected, just forgetful. But some things shouldn't be forgotten. Asterisk Helen was crying openly now. Mom, I'm so sorry about your birthday. I marked it on my calendar, but then Sarah had her dance recital, and Michael had his soccer game, and I just I just forgot. Asterisk, no, dear. Life gets busy. But I've been thinking about what's important, and I've realized that maybe it's time for me to move on too. Asterisk, I told them about my appointment with Thomas, about my decision to leave everything to charity. The silence that followed was different from the silence I had grown accustomed to. This was the silence of shock, of realization, of regret. Asterisk, Mom, Margaret whispered, "You can't mean that." Asterisk, I do mean it. The family Bible that belonged to your great-great-grandmother, the wedding ring that's been passed down for 4 generations. The photographs and letters and recipes, all of it, will go to people who might actually value it. Asterisk. But we do value it, Robert protested. We value you, asterisk, do you? When was the last time any of you asked about these things? When was the last time you wanted to hear about our family history? When was the last time you made me feel like I mattered? Asterisk, 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 for more heartwarming stories about family, love, and the wisdom of our elders. Don't forget to subscribe and join our community of viewers who believe every voice matters. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The conversation that followed was the most honest our family had shared in years. Margaret admitted that she had been so focused on her career and her own children that she had somehow convinced herself I was fine on my own. Robert confessed that he had been avoiding me because seeing me reminded him of his father's death and he hadn't processed that grief properly. Helen acknowledged that she had been taking me for granted, assuming I would always be there. Asterisk. But Mom, Helen said, what you did the flowers, the skywriter, the letters that made us realize what we were losing. Not just your inheritance, but you, your stories, your wisdom, your love. Asterisk, I'm not going to live forever, I said gently. And when I'm gone, these stories will be gone too. The recipe for your father's favorite soup, the lullaby my mother sang to me, the way your grandfather proposed in the middle of a thunderstorm, all of it will disappear. Asterisk, then teach us, Margaret said. Please, Mom, teach us everything. Asterisk, over. The next several weeks, something beautiful began to happen. Margaret started calling every Sunday, not just to check on me, but to actually talk. Robert began stopping by after work, sometimes bringing his twins to hear stories about their great-grandfather. Helen started a family journal, writing down all the stories I shared with her. Asterisk, my grandchildren became regular visitors. Timothy brought his girlfriend to meet me, proudly introducing me as the grandmother who worked in an airplane factory during the war. Margaret's daughter Sarah asked if I would teach her to make my famous apple pie. Robert's twins wanted to hear war stories about their great-grandfather. Asterisk. The house that had been silent for so long was filled with laughter and conversation again. But more than that, it was filled with connection. 3 generations of our family were finally talking to each other, sharing stories, creating new memories. Asterisk, I kept my appointment with Thomas, but I made different changes to my will. Instead of leaving everything to charity, I carefully distributed family heirlooms and mementos among my children and grandchildren, along with letters explaining the significance of each item. I also established a small scholarship fund in Harold's name, ensuring that our family's commitment to education would continue. Asterisk, you know, Thomas said as we finished the paperwork, I've never seen a family come together quite like this. What you did took courage. Asterisk, it took desperation, I corrected. But sometimes desperation leads us to courage we didn't know we had. Asterisk, the real test came on my 74th birthday. I didn't prepare an elaborate dinner. I didn't call to remind anyone. I simply went about my day, tending to my small garden and reading my book. Asterisk, at exactly 5 o'clock, my doorbell rang. Margaret stood there with a homemade cake. Robert had brought flowers. And Helen was carrying a photo album she had been working on. Behind them were all 6 of my grandchildren, each holding a small gift. Asterisk, happy birthday, Grandma. Ah, they shouted. In unison, asterisk, we spent the evening looking through old photographs, sharing stories, and making new memories. Margaret had learned to make Harold's favorite soup, and Robert had brought his guitar to play the songs his father had loved. Helen read aloud from the family journal she had been keeping. Asterisk, as I blew out my candles. surrounded by the family I had almost lost. I made a wish. Not for more years, though I hoped for many, but for more moments like this, more connections. More love. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Thank you for joining Dorothy on her journey. If her story touched your heart, please subscribe to hear more inspiring tales from seniors who refuse to let their voices be silenced. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat in my living room looking at the cards and gifts they had given me. But the best gift wasn't something I could hold in my hands. It was the knowledge that I hadn't been forgotten, after all. I had just been taken for granted, and sometimes the people we love need to be reminded of what they have before they lose. My family had forgotten I existed, but I had made them remember. Not through anger or bitterness, but through love expressed in ways they couldn't ignore. I had reminded them that some things, some people are too precious to forget. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. But now, instead of mocking me, it seemed to be marking time for all the conversations still to come. All the stories still to be told. All the love still to be shared. Dorothy Mae Patterson was no longer invisible. She was exactly where she belonged, at the heart of a family that had remembered how to love her back. The next morning, I woke to find a text message from Timothy. Grandma, can you teach me to make Grandpa's favorite soup this weekend? I want to make it for my girlfriend. I smiled as I typed back. Of course, dear. Come over Saturday morning and bring your appetite. We'll make enough for everyone. Some victories are won on battlefields, others in boardrooms. But the sweetest victories are won in living rooms, around kitchen tables, and in the quiet moments when someone realizes they are loved and remembered. I had fought for my place in my family's life. I had one. Not through manipulation or guilt, but through the simple, powerful act of refusing to disappear. I had made them remember not just that I existed, but why I mattered. And in the end, that made all the difference.